Hey, what's happening? This is Christopher Wright, Right Side Media in the building, and I got a good friend of the longtime friend of the podcast, man. We got me and this guy go way back, and I'm glad to have him on now because there's a lot going on in the country. So I had to get his 2 cents on everything, man. So he's a good friend of mine, Mike Nificent. I said, go ahead, Mike, tell a little bit of people about yourself. So people that have listened for a while know who you are, but for the new listeners.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. I'm a correspondent with Right Side Broadcasting. I live in Florida. I've lived in 3 states actually, so I can attest to this. Florida is the best state. I will never live in a blue state again. So with the state of our world, I feel like I was inspired by the Lord to use my voice, and the
Amen.
platform has grown, and I've been blessed to be able to pay my bills and feed my family. And what I'm doing right now is something I never thought I'd see myself doing. I thought I would be working corporate America. I thought after college I would be, climbing up the ranks or whatever. And God had a different plan for me. And here I am in this situation where we are on the brink of a total collapse of humanity. We're in a fallen state, and there's the devil out there trying to drag people to hell. I mean, it's so obvious, so blatantly obvious. So I'm just using my voice to speak out against it and hopefully lead people out of the dark, because there's a lot of people in a dark spot right now.
No, amen, brother. Amen to that, man. You're speaking facts right now, man. And I'm glad, God put you on this path, man, because you are a warrior in this fight. And, I feel God's done the same thing for me, man. Like, I was out here just, going on social media, just going back and forth with people about my political decisions and I always taught politics, but, once I got on social media, I got back and forth once I started looking Republican. And it got to the point where it got pretty heated. And I just was like, man, what am I doing? I got family and friends cutting me off because of my political beliefs. And the walkway movement started right around that time frame, and I put a video out for them, and it went viral. And this, from God's grace, after that point, I started a YouTube channel. We just grew from there, and I was able to found a group, the Conservative Republican Alliance here in New York. And just recently started my group, Right Side, my business, Right Side Media, as well. So things have just been growing, man, and it's all been by the Lord's graces. And I'm glad He put you in my path, because when it all just started, I remember I was reaching out to people that I was watching on YouTube who I had a lot of respect for. And nobody was giving me, even trying to hear what I had to say. But you were the first person to be like, hey, man, yeah, definitely. You can do an interview. Come on, let's do this. And I was like, all right, cool. So, we got on there, and, you really helped me out at the really beginning, get my feet off the ground. And that's why I say, from this point on, I always reach out to you if you have some time, man. We can always sit down and do interviews in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And, once I get on the other side of this YouTube channel weird situation I'm in, we'll have you on as a guest.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it, brother. I always enjoy being on the show. So let's get started, man. I want to ask you what's the elephant in the room. Of course, we all know the whole vax mandate situation, man. What are your 2 cents on that right now? Because I know you're in Florida right now, so the way your point of view of the whole situation might be a little bit different from mine. I'm in New York, so we all know what's happening in New York and the Californias of the world.
Well, I mean, we have a governor in Florida, and Ron DeSantis, who has completely banned vaccine mandates. No corporation in the state of Florida can require that you show your medical papers to enter a restaurant or any kind of business. He's banned the schools from requiring masks for students, but the problem is they're going around his executive order. Businesses, landlords are evicting people if they don't get vaccinated. So basically what it is the rhetoric coming out of the White House is being used to embolden people to circumvent the state laws or state mandates, because they have an ally at the federal level. So it's basically this big power struggle, a chess match, if you will, because DeSantis put this in place to protect Floridians, protect the rights of parents to decide if they want to muzzle their child or not. And then you've got landlords saying, well, I'll evict you. So I think a lot of what's happening right now is just going to be tied up in the courts. It's going to be a big legal battle. But no matter what happens, people aren't going to comply with it. I don't care if DeSantis himself said vaccines are mandatory. Floridians are not going to comply with it. That's just, it's just that simple.
You guys.
Yeah, it's just that simple. And if other states, yeah.
I agree, but I didn't cut you off, man. But now I was down there for 2 years, man. You guys, Floridians are fighters, man. You guys are old school Americans down there. You guys don't play around. If it's time to get out there and get your voice heard and do what you got to do, Floridians are going to do it. And DeSantis is an amazing governor you guys have down there, man. I got to give him a lot of credit, man. He's fighting for you guys to most that he can fight from his position. You know what I mean? I think it is going to be a fight that's going to be in the judicial side of things. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I really, what do you think about the Florida's future though, when it comes to this? Do you see you guys coming out on top with DeSantis, or what side do you see everything happening in the future?
Well, I think it's going to be really hard for them to steal the state of Florida because Florida's become more red over time. Florida is no longer a swing state, in my opinion. You've got Democrats saying it's a swing state because it voted for Obama twice. But if you look at the state level, we haven't had a Democrat governor since the early 90s. We've had state or Republican controlled House and Senate at the state level since the 90s. Democrats control nothing. We have one statewide elected Democrat. With that said, they're going to try to flood this state with illegals. Now, we have our governor in place that is, banned all kind of sanctuary counties and, the funny business Democrats like to do to try to ensure that they win elections. They don't have that luxury. They don't have a Democrat that can get things done for them here. So I see Florida remaining a red state, remaining a peninsula of freedom is what people call it, actually. But if Ron DeSantis decides to throw his name in the hat for 2024, which I think is a huge mistake, then we're vulnerable because who comes behind Ron DeSantis? We don't know. I mean, hopefully it's Trump that runs in 2024. The worst thing Ron DeSantis could do is run as Trump's running mate and try to be vice president, because we saw from Mike Pence, the vice president does nothing. We need someone like Ron DeSantis to remain where he is, set up the largest swing state in the country for long-term success. So I think that if he stays where he's at, we're good to go. But if he decides to run for president, then anything could happen.
Very interesting. No, I agree with you say on that, because it's funny because when I bring that up, of course, being a fan of DeSantis just as a politician, I'll brought up a few times, hey, DeSantis 2020, in the future, down the line 2024. And when I said that, a lot of Floridian friends of mine, because I got quite a few friends in Florida, they were like, nah, man, he's ours, man. Don't get you, stay away from him, man. Like, we need him down in Florida. And I totally agree with them. And like you said, I just in my head thought Florida was still a swing state. So I said, the fact that it could be possibly still a swing state, he should stay down there for the moment. You know what I mean? I think Trump should run again personally. I know some people think DeSantis should run, but I personally think it should be Trump in 2024. But no, I think he's doing a great job down in Florida, and you guys need him down in Florida right now. And but you said the details you broke down about how Florida is breaking down with your congressman, though, is very interesting. I didn't know that much of it. It's that much red now down in Florida. I thought it was, like I said earlier, it was, swing states, though. It's very interesting.
Well, we got Marco Rubio up for re-election in 2022 midterms, and he's running against Val Demings. So that seat is actually vulnerable, in my opinion, because on one side, you got Marco Rubio, who's a rhino. He's not America first. He believes in red flag laws. He's been in his seat too long. There are some primary challengers. I personally don't trust anybody as a primary challenger. In fact, I think Trump already endorsed Rubio. So anybody trying to primary him is just a waste. I'm not excited to vote for him, but I'm going to vote for him because the alternative is Val Demings, then that would give them more power at the Senate if they have another Democrat. So I think they're going to target Rubio's seat because they think they can flip it. Val Demings, a black woman, so she's going to play the race card and the gender card. That's what will happen. Everybody knows it's true, including her. That's the strategy, to label him a racist and a sexist and all of that stuff. And they're going to do whatever they can to get her elected, including but not limited to bringing down celebrities, Ariana Grande, Snoop Dogg, LeBron. Everybody's going to be looking at Florida to try to flip both the gubernatorial race and the Senate race with Marco Rubio. But other than that, I just really don't see it working out for them because the state is super red. It's more red than I realized when I got here. And this is the best state I've ever lived in.
Wow. That's powerful, man. Yeah. I mean, I was a huge fan of Florida, it was God's calling for me to come up to New York at the time. I just had opportunity. I went up here, at first it was rough, but when I got my feet, things turned out pretty good. But looking back, man, I'm like, man, I see why God has me here to fight the fight that I'm at, because with this whole vaccine mandate here in New York, it's insane how things are going on up here. I mean, they're doing shutdowns of, like a vaccinated or unvaccinated, like segregation type of situation here, where certain restaurants won't let you in if you can't show proof of vaccination, some like an ID card. And it's like, man, this is stuff we heard in history of, different, take tyrannical takeovers of different nations and countries. And they're doing the same tactics here, like Gestapo type tactics in New York. And it's like, if you look at even the numbers, 70% of blacks here are the ones are unvaccinated in New York. So if they start up doing these whole segregated restaurant, vaccinated, unvaccinated situation here in New York, most people are going to be affected are black people. So this is like, we're going like repeated history here, man. We're going backwards, if you ask me. And this is what I keep telling people, man. The left has gone so far left, they've gone full circle. Like, they're eating their own. They don't know what they're doing politically anymore. It's disturbing to watch. And living in a place like New York, man, it's people are afraid here, man. A lot of people are, man. They come to me and they have questions, they got concerns, and I'm trying to help them out the best I can. But I mean, all I can tell them is like, hey, look, the rest of the country's not like this. I've been to Florida twice during the quarantine. I've been to Georgia once. It's like a whole different world down there. Like, I just remember going out, hanging out, seeing people, and people just having a mask off, laughing, drinking, having a good time, telling jokes. And I'm like, you guys don't realize what a privilege this is now. Excuse me. It is now in this modern time, man, because in New York, we don't have this. It's like, especially during the beginning of the quarantine, we couldn't like barely even leave the house. Like restaurant, I mean, that's when the businesses, everything was closed, everything was shut down. So I had cabin fever there. I mean, I was locked inside my one bedroom apartment kind of thing, and just couldn't stand it, man. It was crazy. And I had to get down south 3 times just to kind of get my mind right and just be like, okay, all right, calm down. This is not reality. This is not America. This is not the new norm, like they keep trying to call it. So, man, I just want to say, man, I always look at what you're doing down there, man. Check on your content, man, because I know, you want to tell the truth what's going on down there in Florida. And I need to hear that being in New York. Trust me.
Yeah. And more than me bragging about where I live in Florida, I've been trying to be a voice for people in places like New York and California, where you guys have a unique opportunity to turn out in mass to reject the medical tyranny. I mean, if you look at videos of what's going on in France, I mean, they come in the streets with like 500,000 people. And New York City's got 8 million people. All you got to do to inspire people is show them the power of protest. People need to be out by the hundreds of thousands, because there's hundreds of thousands of people in that city, if not millions, that are not on board with this. They need to make their voices heard. They need to not comply, because non-compliance, that's what we need. Mass united non-compliance. And if you have that, then they have no choice but to back it down. Like the UK, they just backed down vaccine passports. And I think because the protests were so big. In France, remember the yellow vest protests? They had 1 million people out there. Hong Kong, they had like 2 million people protesting in the street.
I
If
remember.
you can get that kind of mass action, I think that's the only way to overcome the tyranny, because really all it is it's one man's opinion backed by the threat of force. If you can get law enforcement on your side, if you can get nurses, doctors, firefighters, cops on your side, then what do they do then? We always will outnumber them. That's what I would say to anybody living in New York, New Jersey, anywhere where they're dealing with these medical mandates.
Hey, brother, I totally agree with you on that, man. You hit the nail right on the perfect hit, man. Target is right in the middle. That's what we're doing here. We have the worldwide freedom rallies that they're having. Like I said, that's in France. They're having them here in New York as well. And they got events, and they are growing, man. They're growing by the numbers. I said the first one I saw was City Hall was probably around 500 people. And the last one I attended over in Madison Square Garden, that one was, I'm sorry, not Madison Square Garden, I'm sorry, it's Times Square. That one is around, man, over 1,000 people, 1,500, 2,000 people. I can't even keep track of that. There's a lot of people, man. We were flooding the roads. You could see miles down the road, and there are people still coming with signs. And it's really bringing a lot of people together, man. And the last event was very powerful. A good friend of mine, Josephine Valdez, she spoke at the event, and she was coming out to me at different MAGA events and everything like that. And she was a speaker at that event, and she, did an amazing job, man, a powerful speech. And there was other great speakers there as well. And I was like, man, this is amazing. So I got a lot of it out there to the public, live streamed it, and it's getting a lot of attention. And I tell people all the time, here in New York, if we can get it out there and show the rest of the world that we're here fighting, that's going to be very important, because a lot of people look at New York in a very high standard. We're almost like, of course, DC is the capital of America, but in a way, I almost look at New York as the capital of just like what is going on in America. So a lot of people in America look at New York and see what's the trend. that's going on in the country, and the people around the world when they look at America, they look at New York. Statue of Liberty, all that. What's going on in New York? And we are out here. We're coming out in droves, doing our thing. There's a lot of patriots out there getting their voices heard, and there's people I see even on the left. There's people, all sides coming out. So it's just the American people, we the people coming out and really getting their voices heard. So it's very powerful, and we really, I think, as a country right now, we really need to see this.
That's good. Yeah, love to
Yeah.
see it, man.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to ask you something else, Mike. This is something that I want to get your, pick your brain about a little bit. And it was a social situation with Larry Elder. I saw, you saw he's run for governor in California recently, and the whole situation there, man. You saw how, the voting, solar system came out. What are your thoughts on the whole situation with Larry Elder?
With him losing the election?
Yeah, with losing the election, you just got two-part question. Like, of course, losing the election. What are your thoughts on that? Do you thought it was a fair election? And also, what are your thoughts on like how the whole situation, like the behavior of the whole situation, like prior to him running, and how the media treated him, and just different incidents that happened in the public? What were your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, if you look at the recall election in California, Gavin Newsom made it about Republicans trying to repeal him recall him. It had nothing to do with Republicans trying to recall him. It was Californians who were fed up. There were Democrats that ran to replace him. So it was a nonpartisan thing. It was Californians who realized that he sucked. But instead, he blamed it on Republicans, white supremacy, and QAnon. And then as Larry Elder threw his name in the hat, he instantly went to the top. I mean, because before that you had Caitlyn Jenner and everybody. You have like the conservative establishment, Conservative Inc., letting Caitlyn Jenner speak at CPAC and all this nonsense. Everybody knew that this was just a distraction candidate, right? Once Larry Elder went in there, then it became serious because he shot to the top of the polls. Everybody was on board with Larry Elder. People knew him. And so the attacks came from the media, calling him the blackface of white supremacy. You had the woman in the gorilla mask throw an egg at him. The media was silent. Like, you just had so many attacks on Larry Elder. And because they were attacking him so much, I'm like, he's the guy. He must be a threat. They must be concerned. Then you had all these people like Obama and Elizabeth Warren. A bunch of people go out to California to campaign for Gavin Newsom. And Larry Elder rightly pointed out, none of them said anything about his record and how awesome of a job he was doing. They were just saying, hey, we need to keep him in here. You don't want Trump. That's all they can really do is fearmonger. You don't want this guy. He's too much like Trump, and the fact that he lost. Yeah, we saw some funny business with ballots being found. A lot of people showed up to the polling place and they found out that they had already cast their ballot. So it looks like there was cheating there, but at the same time, it was California. It was a long shot for any Republican to win. Trump didn't get a big chunk of the vote there. No Republican has. California is a lost cause. If I were a conservative living there, if that was my home state, I would have to abandon, unfortunately, because I feel like, first of all, your voice is drowned out. You can't vote. If you vote there, it just gets washed out by San Francisco and LA County. I mean, half of the state's population is pretty much in LA County and San Francisco, in that Bay Area that controls the entire state government. And if you know any like of the history of California, it's been controlled by 4 families for like the last 80 years. So the corruption runs extremely deep there. That's obviously where Silicon Valley is. So you got the tech giants that could put their thumb on the scale, manipulate elections. So I just feel like the gesture of Larry Elder running shows that Californians have a lot of fight in them, but it wasn't enough, unfortunately, to overcome it. I just think that's kind of the reality, is like there's deep red states like Oklahoma, no Democrats winning in Oklahoma, just like apparently no Republican is winning in California. That's kind of the way it is now.
Yeah, it's a similar setup to how New York is. We have the city area, the 5 boroughs, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, all that good stuff. And they determine a lot of the voting that goes on. Upstate's pretty red in that area. It's just the fact that all the people are crammed in the city area. So it kind of affects the whole, the whole state, unfortunately. But I'm really curious. One thing I will say, I am curious to see if we had a fair and honest election all the way, and we just can say, okay, this is fair, paper ballots. It is what it is. I'm curious to see how well Trump would have done in California and Larry Elder would have done in California. I honestly think Trump would have done pretty well, because I was just looking at, the way I determined how in 2016 how he won the election was just by looking at his rallies. Like he was doing like football stadiums, bringing out record numbers of people to see his rallies. And people were saying, "Oh, this guy has no chance." I'm like, "You can't say this guy has no chance. Like, there's people who are musicians and celebrities who can't do this, but he's doing it as a politician." So that goes a long way. In California, man, they were coming out in droves, like protesting and just coming out there and getting their voices heard. Supporting Trump, and all the stop the steal stuff they had there was came out in a lot of numbers, and even here in New York as well. So I really felt that if it was a fair, honest election, it could have been even a surprise victory for Trump, in California. I think he had a better chance of winning California than here in New York. But, I was hoping to get a fair election to see what could have possibly happened. Of course, we know how that went. But, that's neither here or there. But, yeah, I agree. Larry Elder, how he was treated, man, was just insane, man. Like, it was like you saw, racism. I hate using the word because the left uses it till they abuse it so much where it's like I hate saying it. But there was signs, and a lady with a gorilla mask threw an egg at him. If that was any other situation with a politician, especially if they were on the left, people would have jumped and said, "Oh, it would have been like front page news for the next month." It would have been insane. And they just kind of like swept it under the rug, moved on. They called him a white supremacist in blackface in the LA Times and all this stuff. And I'm like, this was like some 1940s, 1950s, 1930s type activity here, and we just totally ignore it. But it's funny how we totally ignore it when it's a Republican who's getting treated that way, when it's, a Larry Elder type getting treated that way. But when it's, an Obama, it's, of course, we got to, stop what we're doing and, confront this situation or whatever, man. So I wonder why it's a double standard. It's always the left, it's that leftist hypocrisy. And it's like, and this keeps coming up over and over and over again. And that's why I keep telling people in our Black community when I talk politics with them, it's like, when are you going to have enough? Because they are obviously just at this point using identity politics just to get anywhere when it comes to politics, but they have no policies. And I've been saying this for the past 5 years about them. Ever since Trump won the election, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to impeach Trump," and it was 1 week it was Stormy Daniels, and it was Russiagate the next week, and all these different things. Oh, the IRS the other week, and it's always something that he's going to get impeached. And I said, "Why don't you guys stop trying to impeach this guy and talk about policies? It's 3 years you guys get election, 2 years you guys election." And I kept telling him, "It's coming up. What are you guys' policies? Trump's not going to be around, so what does it matter?" I'm like, "That's not a policy. What are the policies you guys are supporting on your side?" And when it came to election, there was no policies. There was sleepy Joe Biden hiding in the basement, and we, all know what happened there. But they're still continuing on with that way of thinking when it comes to their politics. It's using that policy of just trying to use fear tactics to get people to vote for them. And I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, scorched earth policy. That's their policy. Scorched earth policy. Trump derangement syndrome led so many people off a cliff. They were all anti-vaxxers last year. They were all anti-vaxxers. We got video of it. We got Kamala Harris. We got Joy Reid. We got Joe Biden. We got celebrities saying, "I'm not taking it if the orange man promoted it." And now everybody that was anti-vax this year or last year, now this year, they're a vaccine sales rep. They're out there shaming you, telling you you are less than, you're another. They've labeled us unvaccinated now if we don't let that needle get plunged into our arm. And it's pathetic because they threw a bunch of cold water on treatments that we know are true now. The Joe Rogan situation, I don't want to get your channel in trouble, but Joe Rogan situation, they're mad about that. They're mad about the monoclonal antibody treatments in Florida. They're mad about anything that isn't a big pharmaceutical injection. And how many people died because of their medical misinformation while they're sitting there projecting it on us. Republicans are death cult. It's like there are people who have survived and beat this thing without needing a big pharmaceutical injection. And you guys are trying to deter people and discourage them from using it because a Republican supports it. Make that make sense. That's Trump derangement syndrome in a nutshell. Yes. Calling Larry Elder the next coming of Donald Trump. It's like, why is he living in your head rent free? None of this makes any sense. From the time people were getting divorced, family members not wanting to talk to you again, people getting run off the road by a car because they voted for Trump, and we're supposed to pretend like, well, this is normal. He's just an orange Hitler. It's like, who's acting Hitlerian? Who's the Nazis? Who's the one talking about Show me your papers. You
Mm.
guys are the cult. I shared a video on my live stream earlier today of a concert over in the UK. They're literally chanting and like raising their hands and worshiping Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca. And then he said, what about the unvaxxed, the anti-vaxxers? And then they booed. So they're driving all this hatred and division. They're promoting segregation and vaccine supremacy and making us hate each other even more. They find new ways to divide us every day. And then they get mad at us, you and me, for noticing it, for calling it out. Like, you guys don't care about health. You don't care about freedom. You don't care about the people you claim to care about. You basically got this giant tit city of, under that bridge in Texas. You pretend to care about those people. You're going to let them all in. They don't have to show their medical papers. They're not getting vaccinated. There's no mandates for them, but there's mandates for everyone else. And you're saying this is about health. It's like, you could just go on and on and on, from the hypocrisy to treating people like slaves. It's not going to work. And people like us have such a potent voice in pushing back. And as average people wake up, as they start seeing what's going on, they're going to come find us, and we're going to unify. And the Great Awakening will ultimately be what prevails over this wicked, evil, tyrannical takeover.
Amen, brother. Amen to that, man. And you're so right, man. The left is on that rules for thee, but not for me kind of way of thinking, man. I remember when this whole quarantine was just going down last year, and then we had the New Year's, and they were still telling us to stay inside as citizens. We couldn't come outside, and then de Blasio came out with his wife and was dancing around on the New Year's, like, and I was like, wow, it was like, Rome is burning. You know what I mean? It's just like the Nero sitting back watching Rome burn. It was the same kind of thing. Like, this is what we're dealing with the left, man. The hypocrisy is insane. Like I said, I remember, like you said, when Trump initially announced he had the vaccine for the country, and the people like Kamala Harris is coming out talking about, I'm not going to take that. Like, not for if it's from Trump. And people on the left were saying the same statements. People in the media were saying the same statements. And now all of a sudden, it's people's like almost their door getting kicked down, trying to take this vaccine shot, man. Like, they're making it pretty much almost impossible to live in New York unless you got the vaccine shot. Like, they're going stages to see how far they can get away with things. Like, okay, let's do this with the restaurants. You don't have vaccine, you can't come to a restaurant. Oh, you can't go to the gym anymore. And see if they can get away with that, then they'll go a step higher. Okay, then we're going to shut down the grocery stores, and unless you have a vaccine shot. And then they say, oh, we'll get away with that. Then we'll shut down the hospital so you can until you get the vaccine shot. So they're just trying to see. And you saw this in history. If you look at history and tell me, like with the Nazi Germany when it got started, I think it started with the Nazis kicking down Jewish people's doors and just yoking them up. It started up with the Nazi youth and stuff like that. It was sort of like, oh, this is for your health. This is for your safety. We're doing this for your benefit. We're doing this to help you. And that's how they always begin things. Oh, this is for your help. This is for your benefit. And if you're foolish enough to believe it and let them and keep, taking the bait, they're going to eventually come in with that hammer shot and just, knock beside your head. And it's going to be too late by that time. I guarantee there were a lot of German citizens of the time who, when they fell under Nazi Germany's control, who were sitting back thinking like, I didn't see this coming. You didn't say nothing. You didn't step up. Now it's too late. Now you're in a situation that you're in. And that's why one thing about the internet, I'm so glad we had, because we can learn from the people's mistakes in the past with this.
Yeah, and we can expose all the useful idiots out there. I don't say it to be mean. I say it because it's true. How many stories have you seen promoted by the media where fully vaccinated woman who passed away, her family blames the unvaccinated? They don't blame the vaccine manufacturer for ruining her life because she got an injection she thought was going to work. They don't blame China. They don't blame Fauci. They blame the unvaccinated. And this authoritarianism is creeping slowly but surely. I've been telling people for weeks, watch what's going on in Australia. We're like 5 minutes behind them. And now, boom, I just shared a story today where they're constructing quarantine facilities in the state of Washington. That's a concentration camp. First of all, why are they constructing a building? You know how long it takes to get the permits, to put the infrastructure, the plumbing, the electricity? Why would you be constructing a building if this is supposed to be a temporary public health crisis? No, they're making these structures so that they can put unvaccinated people in there, so they can put a death grip on society. And it's starting in Washington State already. So don't be surprised to hear about these health camps and these quarantine facilities popping up in the future. Whatever happens in Australia will eventually happen here. And that's what we see already happening.
You hit it, man. You said watch other countries. But listen to that. What he just said, Mike. Mike just said right there. Watch other countries. It's key. It goes a long way. That's what got me interested with what's going on with Brexit over in Europe is what got me interested. What's going on in this country with Trump and everything before that Trump was even running. And so if you look what's going on in Iceland, for example, Iceland is 90% of Iceland citizens are vaccinated, but yet they just went up. They're about to go under another quarantine as we speak. 90% of their citizens are vaccinated. So what does that tell you? They are the ones actually, okay, whatever you say, we'll do. Their citizens, whatever the government told them to do, they did it, and they're still being punished. So if they're doing this in other countries, you don't think they're going to do the same thing here? It's like, the people got to wake up to what's going on around them. And, I've been like me and you both been talking about this ever since the beginning. Like I said from the jump, as soon as this whole situation happened with the quarantine, I said, okay, if it's here, this COVID's here, and I'm not saying COVID doesn't exist. I know people that have COVID. I know people that have COVID right now. They can't taste, they can't smell. So I'm not saying that's not the case, but I'm saying it's when it came how drastic they made it is what I was looking at. I was looking at that, for example, like when it came here, there was doctors coming out in the Brooklyn area saying they're having me misdiagnose people with COVID when they have flu-like symptoms or cold-like symptoms, and then they're putting them on ventilators. And as we know, when you're in a ventilator, it's 30% survival rate once you're in a ventilator. So he was coming out pretty much saying, I feel uncomfortable doing what I'm doing because I'm technically almost borderline murderer at this point, what I'm doing as a doctor. And so this is what people, this is what they're trying to push, man. This is what I don't know what else to call it, but you're trying to euthanize us is just the only thing I can really think of, man, if you go down to the bottom line. And it's been talked about for a long time. And I was Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, 5-10 years ago, talking about this with certain people, but it's almost like it's here right in front of us.
No, you're good, man. It's not a conspiracy theory, okay? It's not a conspiracy theory when they've announced the New World Order. They've announced it. They've talked about it. It's on camera. It's on video. You play that for people.
Bush.
Their head just, it's like they've already announced it. This is a soft genocide. We could go down the rabbit hole. It's a soft genocide of the first world. That's why they're assaulting our border. That's why it's a challenge of our border. Guess what? No border, no country. They're going to let in all these. They're trying to make it seem like, we're flying them back. They're letting people in while they're basically trying to depopulate the United States, depopulate the first world. They're pushing these mandates in the first world. And, people like George Soros, the UN, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they're all promoting this new way of life, this new world order. They've already reordered the way the world operates, right? Everybody's gotten used. Everybody just accepts the mask is like it's just like a wardrobe accessory. People are walking around showing their health papers. They're just being good, obedient little plebs. You see, you've got a caste system. You look at the Emmys, you look at the Met Gala. It's not about health. Oh, celebrities, they don't spread COVID because they're famous. So that's why they get to be uncovered. First of all, they wouldn't even be meeting in person if they were afraid of this virus. There wouldn't be any parties in the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard. If we were in a public health emergency, close the border. Don't resettle Afghan refugees when they're spreading measles. They're unvaccinated. They're not wearing masks. They're spreading measles. So now you got that going on. You're letting Haitians come in. You're not going to vaccinate them. Haiti is one of the least vaccinated countries on earth. So riddle me that. We have to reach the certain percentage of vaccinated Americans, but you're about to make a whole bunch of new Americans and they don't have to take the vaccine. That's why I tell everybody, reject it. They're even talking about putting the vaccine in food. They're talking about plant-based vaccinations. I could share my screen and show it to you. Plant-based vaccinations where they find a way to infuse it in lettuce leaves. And you know who owns the most farmland? Bill Gates. Bill Gates said the world was overpopulated. I mean, they held Event 201 right before the pandemic started. I mean, all of the information, it makes you sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's all on record. It's all documented. They brag about it. They literally brag about it. They talk about the New World Order. They talk about climate lockdowns. They're talking about segregating the population by vaccine status. And of course, they're still dividing us by race, because if we're divided amongst each other, if the vaccinated can be sick on the unvaccinated, blaming us for why they're dying from this injection that they're taking, oops, maybe, while they're blaming us, they're not looking at the people that are pushing this. That's the way it happens. If divided we stand, unite, or Divided we fall, united we stand. That's kind of where we are right now. But their goal is to replace us with the permanent bottom class, the serf class. That's why they're importing new voters. It's replacement migration. You're not allowed to say it because they'll call you a white supremacist. But where are all these Asians going to go? Where are they going to go? They're going to Chicago. They're going to Harlem. They're going to Philadelphia. They're going to Atlanta. And they're going to be competing for resources with the black and brown people that are already there, displacing them from work, bogging down the infrastructure, weighing in our pulling from our finite resources, our taxpayer money's going towards all of that. It's going to collapse the country. That's basically what their end game is.
Oh, I totally agree, man. I totally agree with you on that. And it's, people got to wake up. When I talk to people in the black community about this whole situation, that's what I want. The number one thing I'm telling them. I think, you think the Democrats have your back? You think that all these illegal, especially when they're the ones who are fighting for it on the left, who are fighting for the illegal immigrants to come over here. Like, you think, you're fighting for that, but you think once they're over here, the Democrats are going to care about you? They want them to come over there because all they see is votes. Once they come over here and they have those votes, they're going to push you to the wayside. You're old news to them, and they're going to move on. So, and if it is already, you can already kind of see it happening in places that are heavily immigrated already, like in Minnesota. And we got the Ilhan Omars who get elected out there and everything like that, is because they have a heavy immigrant population in those areas. And it's, if you look in Europe, they have some certain areas and towns that the immigrants have built, like Sharia towns. The radical Islamic individuals from North Africa and Syria built over there. And the old citizens of Britain and some other places there are less citizenship than these immigrants do. So people got to wake up, man. Like, we need a border. We need, Trump had the right idea, because like you said, if they open up the border and let these people come over, it's going to be game over, man. It really is. And there's something I wanted to show you too as well, Mike. There's a video I got here that was released today. It was by Project Veritas. And it's been getting a lot of attention online. And I didn't really get a chance to really sit down and really look at it. But it seemed like, what they showed us, it's 3-part, and I'm sure they got it's a main full episode they're going to be releasing very soon. But you got to get like a gist of where they're going from this 3 parts here. So I'm going to go ahead and play one part of the video here, and I'll play the other 2 parts right after.
And now you got this guy in room 4 who got his 2nd dose of vaccine on Tuesday, has been short of breath. Okay, now his BNP is elevated, D-dimer elevated, ALT, all his liver enzymes are elevated, his PTINR is elevated. Myocarditis. Yes. Oh, this is bullshit. Let's see. Probably myocarditis due to the vaccine. Right. But now they're not going to blame the vaccine. Well, and you know what? But he has an.
See, that's the first part there.
The government doesn't want to show that the darn vaccine is full of shit.
Oh, this is bullshit. Let's see.
Probably myocarditis due to the vaccine.
Right.
But now they're not going to blame the vaccine because they want to shove it under the mat.
Why are you choosing to blow the whistle? Are you afraid they're going to retaliate against you?
Yeah. I'm a federal employee. What other federal employees do you see coming out?
But you put your faith in God.
Amen.
Let's see that second part.
How come after 18 months we haven't had any research? Isn't that fishy to you?
It does. It doesn't.
It's super fishy.
Not that it hasn't been done. It hasn't been published.
It hasn't probably been done because the government doesn't want to show that the darn vaccine is full of shit.
Is muted.
So, what are your thoughts on that whole situation there? Because it's interesting how this kind of content's coming out now.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch it tonight. I'm waiting for my wife to get home so we can watch all 3 parts together, because she's doing her part to try and reach people in her family, people in her sphere of influence, because we're getting a lot of pressure to get this jab. Like I said, there are legit vaccine salesmen out there. Like, I've never seen it before. But anyway, this whole Project Veritas expose, that this is great. More people need to see it. I mean, Israel's the most vaccinated country on earth. So why are so many people still getting COVID? I mean, that's the thing, is you can get censored for saying what everybody knows is true. Like, this isn't working. Like, Moderna even said last week, you're 2 times more likely to get the virus if you got their shot. There's a long, like 8 hour, I don't know what it is, some like meeting, online meeting with the FDA. And there's like people on there talking about how this whole thing, there's no long-term studies. We're not even going to get any results of long-term studies till like 2024, 2025. So there really is no justification for them to push this. And they're dumping cold water on the idea that kids should be getting vaccinated.
Wow.
So you got all this information coming out right now while Fauci's being paraded around the media talking about how kids, now it's safe and effective for ages 5 and 12. They keep on repeating safe and effective, safe and effective. But I've shared stories.
This is for your safety. This is for your health. This is for your
right.
Mm.
And I've shared stories. There's a story out of Minnesota where a woman had both of her legs and her arms up to her elbows amputated right after she got the jab. How interesting that the first time in history of Big Pharma, there's no downside, no side effects. We absolutely must suppress it all. But if you watch Fox News at night, you watch any TV show, you see Big Pharma commercials all the time. And they're like, side effects might be this, except for the COVID shot. There's none. You can't talk about it. If you try to tell your story, if you were vaccine damaged, if you had blood clots, fertility issues, that's another big one that's coming out.
Oh, Nicki Minaj, Nicki Minaj's cousin. Yeah, and I was going to bring. We'll get on that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we can talk about that. But I'm just saying, like, there's so much information out there. If people valued the truth, they would do their own research. They would do their own research instead of being lazy, relying on Rachel Maddow, Don Lemon in the New York Times to force feed them information. Think for yourself, and you might learn something. You might see that you're being played, and you've been played from the very beginning. All these fake leaders, the mayor of San Francisco. Oh, I didn't wear my mask because I was feeling the spirit listening to Tony. Y'all got to go see Big Maurice and all this. Like, these are the people that you trust with your health, with your future, and you think that they care about your freedom.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, man. They got politicians walking around with no mask on, like Obama having his party, having a great time, no mask and all that stuff like that. And, and it's crazy because it's the hypocrisy of it all. Chuck Schumer, a friend of mine, was just in a part of West Side Manhattan, a nice area. And she saw Chuck Schumer walking around nice, rich part of the area. And he had no mask on, just talking to everybody like it was all good. And you see constantly, I believe the mayor of California was caught at a club or something like that, dancing, having a good time with that mask on. And she got upset at the fact she was like, well, it was unvaccinated club. And so everybody there wasn't vaccinated. So I don't have to wear a mask and all this. And that's the thing, like I mentioned earlier, with eating your own. It's like they keep making up these crazy rules and you got to do it this way or that way. You got to walk and talk like this and do it. And eventually you're going to be stepping on each other's feet. And that's what they're doing. And these are the people that you want to control of the whole country. Like, come on now. Like, they can't even figure things out on a, how a male and female's bathroom should, routine should go. They can't even get that in order. So they want them to run the entire country and do foreign policy. You see what's going on in Afghanistan, with Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. And, that whole situation has gotten that way out of control. You got, they said over 3,000, I heard, citizens over in Afghanistan still stranded after what happened over there with the way Joe Biden handled that situation. And I'm sorry, not Afghanistan, I apologize, Iraq. I didn't even get it mixed up like that. But we still got them stranded over there. And I'm sorry, Afghanistan. I get my countries mixed up over there in the Middle East. But yeah, it's all happened in Afghanistan. And what are your thoughts when you come to that situation, how that was handled? Because to me, that was, in my lifetime, I've never seen our military not be able to step up in that kind of way when it came to any kind of foreign affair.
Well, it's treason, it's corruption of the highest order, Mark Milley, and you found out they droned an innocent family when they got on TV and told you that it was a retaliation against ISIS-K terrorists. No, you droned children. You killed 7 children and 3 innocent civilians, a family gone, wiped off the earth so that Joe Biden could have a little narrative change with his devastating withdrawal. On top of the fact that they are now flying Afghan refugees here to resettle them in states like Georgia, where the Republican governor of that state wants to resettle refugees there. But I'll digress from that. You left them all this money in weapons, right? Black Hawk helicopters. AR-15s, the whole nine. You basically armed the Taliban and gave them back Afghanistan. And then on top of that, Biden wanted to pat himself on the back, and he has no regrets. And then he goes on vacation. Now he's out bike riding. So he's just setting little fires all around the world. His presidency is a complete disaster. This will go down as the worst presidency in American history. As they tell you, Trump was the worst president in American history when we had all kind of records, low gas prices, stock market, unemployment, peace in the Middle East. You got Joe Biden, the extreme polar opposite effect. They've inverted our reality. And with this Afghanistan thing, they keep changing the narrative so that nobody goes back to look at. The Afghanistan story feels like it was 6 months ago already, because now everyone's talking about this missing girl and the border. Anything to keep, but that's another problem for Joe Biden too. We're on to his next debacle, the border. So the Afghanistan thing just is sad. It's frustrating to see how demoralizing it is for our troops, how many lives were lost for a pointless war. And it does span, it's not just Biden. We can't just put this all on Biden. It is Bush, it's Obama. They did not pull troops home when they should have.
Facts.
Biden just was like the cherry on top with that withdrawal. Because I don't disagree with the withdrawal. We needed to exit Afghanistan.
Trump already had the game plan out.
Trump had the game plan.
And you know, Trump when it went out like that, man. Trump went ahead, just did that withdrawal the way Joe Biden did it, and left all our military vehicles and armory over there. He left our citizens over there. He left
service
people,
dogs. Yep.
Yeah, people that were our cohorts that helped us, that were even Afghanistan citizens. You know what I mean? Like, they deserved better treatment than what they got, man. Because you know, if you know, God forbid, but you know, if anybody's gonna get attacked first out of those who are left over there, it's going to be them, man. It's own citizens, because they're going to look at them like traitors. And this is what Joe Biden did. And like I said, people want to say, oh, well, Trump is going to do the same thing. But no, Trump, you know, would have had it better mapped out. He would have had a better game plan. Other countries' foreign leaders respected us when Trump was president. They feared Trump in a respected kind of way. I mean, Kim Jong-un was like actually chilling out for a 4-year period. Whoever thought he could calm down for any type of you know, time frame? And he was even relaxed because they respected Trump. He's an alpha. He's a great leader. You know what I mean? I can see why when he was in New York and he did business, why he's so successful. When you see him as a leader on a presidential level. So it all made sense under Trump, man. But under Biden, man, we're looking so weak right now. We're looking so pathetic. And it's like, and it feels like this is the longest presidency I've ever seen. That's the worst presidency. I agree. I told my sister when he officially said, okay, I said, all right, he's going to be president. I told her he's going to be the worst president in American history. And she was like, oh, really? You know, come on. And I was like, watch and see. And from that point on, like, it seems like every week he does something new that's insane. It just, you know, makes him look worse as a leader. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Not at all.
Yeah. And we're only like 9 months in. What's crazy is right before this stream, I just got off the phone with my mom. And she brought this up. She doesn't really get into politics. She's like, I can't stand Joe Biden. She's like, he makes me sick. I can't believe we're dealing with this as a country. She doesn't like the direction the country's going. There are millions of people like my mom who don't pay attention to politics, but they can see something's different. They look at the gas prices and they see something's different. Somebody in the chat, I saw this while you were talking. Some guy named Robert Reed says, gas prices currently reflect what they look like before the pandemic. That's a lie. I don't like liars. That's a straight up lie. Some people are doing mental gymnastics. He probably also believes we've always done vaccine mandates. You've always had to show your medical papers in school. There's probably somebody that does those kind of mental gymnastics, man. There's only a handful of people who do that, but there are millions that are waking up right now and they see it. And I just pray that we can shore up how elections are done, because if we could, Democrats would lose every election, guaranteed.
I agree. No, I totally agree. And I'm glad to see people are waking up. Like I said, you know, the nickname for America, one of our nicknames is a sleeping giant, you know. And when we got bombed in Pearl Harbor, when Japanese was finished bombing us, I remember one of the generals of the time when they were flying away, and the people were like celebrating. He wasn't celebrating. He said, "This is nothing to celebrate. Like, we've woken a sleeping giant. Like, this is, we don't know. You don't know what you just did." And I'm seeing that happening even here in New York. You know, you can say what you want to say about New York. It's blue, whatever. But man, there were some people out there, and I want to say not all of them were, you know, I'll call them nationalists necessarily, but they were they love freedom. They're citizens of this country, and they'll fight for their freedom and put their life on the line for their freedom. So that's what I'm realizing how America works. It's not about a party or a right or a left. It's about united we stand, divided we fall. What that really truly means, which is just coming together, all American citizens of all races, creeds, color, political beliefs, coming together to get things done. And it's happening in places like New York, and hopefully, like, we can kind of be the vessel that people can look at and say, okay, now let's do it here in Milwaukee, North Dakota, whatever you may be. Let's just make this a country, world country thing kind of thing. And it's in some countries, in some states, I'm sorry, in this country, I don't have to worry about that. I'm looking at Texas, I'm looking at Georgia, Florida, places, Mississippi, Alabama. They're already put their gloves up and they're they're ready to go. Texas really already saying we want no parts of this. Like, I see why they're nicknamed the Lone Star State, man. They will say they look like they're ready to break off from anything crazy. If anything in America gets too nuts, Texas will be the first one, like, okay, we're done with this. We're going to be our own country over here. We're going to cut ourselves out of the whole frame, and we'll be cool over here. So, but it's great to see. It's amazing to see, man. And even like I'm saying with the left, like I was going to mention earlier, I want to bring her back up, Nicki Minaj situation. Like, that is interesting to me because it's similar to Kanye in a way, but it's different, of course, in its own way. She's her own woman. She has her own kind of fans and everything like that. But it's kind of like you said, like, they eat their own, man. Like, they make so many rules and so many ways of thinking, and cancel culture gets involved with the far left, where it's like you can't even breathe without breaking some kind of rule. Where, like a Nicki Minaj, she just brings up the fact that something happened to her cousin who got a vaccine shot, and they come after her. And then she shares a Tucker Carlson video, and it's like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end. Like, she literally broke Twitter down for that day when she shared that Tucker Carlson video. Like, it was insane. Like, what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, what's weird is she hasn't tweeted since. She hasn't tweeted since last week, and she hasn't posted anything on Instagram. I think what we saw was another wave of awakening, because she has almost 200 million followers on social media between Twitter and Instagram. And they sat there and they watched her get berated and dragged by the media for something that she didn't say or do. People watched that happen in real time. She tweeted about not going to the Met Gala, and she started saying, like, question everything, pray about it before you decide what goes in your body. She's like, I'm not going to the Met Gala because of, if I get vaccinated, it won't be to go to the Met Gala. She talked about how she has a son now. And the media said she's an anti-vaxxer. She got suspended from Twitter. They watched her get berated. They watched the fake news unfold in real time. That's a lot of people who don't pay attention to politics. They saw Nicki Minaj tweet that everyone should get vaccinated and that she eventually will get vaccinated because she has to travel for work. So she said in the same breath that do your own research and decide what's right for you. She said, I understand some people have to do it for work. She said she was going to do it herself. She said a lot of things that the media just glossed over, and then they focused on the fact that she talked about swollen testicles, and then they ran with that narrative to bash her on late night shows. That's how propaganda works, to influence minds to think one thing. Nobody went and researched on their own. What did Nicki Minaj actually say? They're like, she said something about testicles. She's crazy. So similar to Kanye, how they wrote him off to make him seem nutty. They're doing the same thing to Nicki Minaj. The difference is Nicki Minaj hit back. She came with the receipts on Joy Reid using her platform to discourage vaccinations last year. That was brilliant. That was master level, exposing the media for the frauds and hypocrites they are. And who better to do it to than Joy Reid, one of the most insufferable people on television.
Oh my goodness, her and Adam Schiff are just battling for that title, I think, every other day. When they're going back and forth, man. But yes, that was amazing when she stuck it to Joy Reid, man. Because I'm like, thank you, somebody, please finally give it to this woman, because she's a pure hypocrite, man. Like, purely, And I'm glad she's stepping up to the plate, because I think she's Kanye. I felt stepped up to the plate as well, but they did similar tactics with Kanye. I remember he did that interview with TMZ, which I wish he just didn't do interview with TMZ. Like, of all places, he could have went. He did 2 interviews that were like more of his setup, and they're like in a studio kind of setting. And those 2 interviews were really great around the same time frame. And he said a lot in both those interviews. That was very important. A lot about the establishment in Hollywood and the media, and for those so-called conspiracy theorists out there, which are not, but we know what that is. But he said some really deep stuff in those interviews, man, and it got overshadowed by the statement he made on the TMZ, where he was like, like slaves didn't fight back or something, along those
Slavery
lines.
was a choice.
Yes, slavery's made their own choice, and that like little soundbite is what they used to cover up all three of those huge interviews he did. And I'm like, man, and I saw them, they said do the same thing with Nicki Minaj. And like you said, this is propaganda. This is how this works. You see this happen in third world countries. And when we see it from a distance, like when I was seeing it from a distance, I thought, man, I'm glad I live in America, man. And I call it American privilege. You're born in this country, it's a privilege. And I remember looking at what's going on in the world and just having the know-how to say, thank God I'm here in America and I don't got to deal with this on a regular basis. But seeing that and now seeing my own country, I can see when it's starting to happen here. I can see it very quickly because I'm like, this is what because I didn't just not focus in on another country. I didn't like, oh, I don't care about the rest of the world. Oh, they got figured out. I actually watched and said what's going on there. So when I see certain things happening here, I'm like, this is the same thing that was happening in other countries that I saw that was happening in the mid 90s and the early 2000s when I was growing up. It's starting to happen here. Like we're looking like a third world country. I mean, that Biden presidency inauguration, that looked like we're in a third world country. It was like the military was all out there. There was no citizens. The military are citizens, but I'm talking about in terms of like, ranking military and U.S. and the citizens walking on the turf. And I'm like, wow. So I'm like, this is like a third world country we're living in. Like the military's out there and that's it. You don't see American citizens like waving or celebrating, nothing like that. And you're seeing other elements like the State of the Union speech. You saw Biden's is like, what the heck, is like 10 people there and they're wearing masks and it was like weird. And then Trump did it on the actual day of the State of the Union. His was like, everybody was watching. So it's just everything's backwards up right now. Like everything's upside down. Like, I just hope things come to a change very soon. I have a good feeling the midterms are going to be that's going to be a big moment in history during the midterms. And right now, what's happening right now with those people waking up with the pandemic and they're stepping up and doing these rallies is going to be huge. But I think the midterm is going to be the icing on the cake. That's going to be what hits things home because that's when it's like because I think it's great to get out and do rallies. Don't get me wrong. It's very powerful. It's very important. But I think what goes along with rallies and marches and movements is you got to have the politics involved. That's what at the end of the day, because you have the Constitution, but that's what what was used to build this country, like the paperwork, the politicians is what was used to build the country. And you see the same thing with the Emancipation Proclamation with Lincoln. Like he used law to get things done for to get the disassemble slavery and everything like that. And you see it in civil rights and and with JFK and Bobby really fighting on a political level to get civil rights as a law passed for the Black community. So it goes hand in hand. Like you can't just say, okay, we the people are just going to stand up and that's it. And I mean, nothing wrong with that. Of course, you need to get up as people and we need to stand up, but we got to be logical at the same time and know we got to put the right politicians in that position of power so we can have the politics along with the citizenship of stepping up to the plate. And I think, we got to focus on both. Both play a very important role.
Yeah. And the thing is, the awakening is happening. I mean, this is the third week in a row now where videos are going viral of these college stadiums chanting F Biden. And there's so much power in that. Regardless of what you think about the people saying F Biden, that's a large amount of people. Supposedly that would be a big chunk of the 80 million people that supported Biden, right? You don't have anybody cheering for Biden. You got college stadiums that hold like 80 to 100,000 people, and they're all chanting F Biden all around the country. And this is 3 weeks in a row. It's a new trend. He can't go anywhere without being heckled. He can't go anywhere without being met with a bunch of patriots, a bunch of Trump supporters, a bunch of people resisting his mandates. And you can't find anybody on the other side. I suppose the only people you find on the other side are wearing masks. Slavery is a choice. Where was the lie when Kanye said that? When people are choosing to be walking to the slaughter themselves. They're like, yeah, I'll wear a mask. I'll show papers. You want me to get 15 booster shots? Sure, I'll do whatever you say. They worship vaccines. You got Delta, people in the chat over here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you got this dude in the chat right over here talking about he's doing all this mental gymnastics. Gas prices were this and this and this and this. Literally, gas prices were at record lows before the pandemic. And he's saying gas prices right now are the same. I've lived in Florida for 4 years. They have never been over $3. Never. In the 4 years I've lived here, gas prices were not over $3. That's a fact. People are still doing the mental gymnastics, trying to invert reality, doing the devil's work, just inverting reality. Nope, the opposite thing is true. Those are the minority. I'm slipping my words here because this is my third live stream today. But that's the minority of people right there trying to influence the masses. You see it with the MSNBC. You see it with the late night shows. Trevor Noah. You see it with Stephen Colbert. The people that are trying to invert reality. But the masses, the majority, they reject Biden. I told you my mom doesn't pay attention to politics. She's like, I'm sick of Biden. These college campuses with the young, the what are they, Zoomers? They're all chanting F Biden. You can't find his supporters anywhere. They don't exist. That's why they have to disable the comments on YouTube channels, on all his videos.
And
they
take away dislikes.
Comments.
Don't forget that, man.
They take away dislikes. They have to. I mean, we've seen all the stuff. Some of people call it conspiracy theory, but we've seen some questionable images of him that look like CGI when he was on the lawn and his hand was waving in front. Like a lot of weird stuff going on with this man. They're showing him looking at bike riding.
I couldn't, man. Something is up with Joe Biden, man. Sleepy Joe, there's something not all the way right upstairs when it comes to Sleepy Joe Biden, man. And like the guy can barely complete a sentence. You know, there's moments where I'm like looking at him like, man, this is sad, man. Like this is like, you know, I don't even like joke like that anymore about Joe Biden, man, because there's something really off with him. Like you can really see his Alzheimer's or something like that. And the fact that they paraded him out the way they did just because I said TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, it's a shame. It's a shame because anybody who's watching the campaign all the way up to leading up, I was looking at the candidates they had, and Joe Biden was the one where I'm like, they can't put him out there, man. They're gonna, you know, Kamala Harris, you know, Tulsi Gabbard, Elizabeth Warren. They had all these different people, and I'm like, they're gonna go out with any of these people that are logically still there, mentally still there, not logically. I'm sorry, mentally, like, you know, can still think for themselves and complete a sentence. But instead, they went with Joe Biden, man. And the reason I'm looking at it now that they went with Joe Biden because they know he was the biggest puppet at the end of the day. He was the one at the end of the day. I mean, the other ones they could have, you know, played the role pretty good, and you know, but there's only one that could have been, you know, to the point where they literally had to tell him how to think and what to say. Because you see the moments when he's doing the press briefings and he's like, I was told not to talk to you, and they told me not to answer that question, and it's like, who are they? Who are these they you're talking about? And it's like, I've never in my life, even the presidents that you might have said, okay, oh, maybe W. Bush back in the day, Cheney was in his ear or Cheney was doing this. And there's certain presidents you can look at and it maybe think about. But with Joe Biden, it's blatantly obvious that he's not in control. And it's showing, the country's showing as well, man. The country is slowly falling apart. And it's because we have no real leadership. We have, I mean, just, you know, like I'm sure you do. You see, you know, clips of Trump, you know, talking about certain situations that Biden's currently handling or not handling. And the way Trump handles it and speaks about it, it's so far advanced from Joe Biden. And not to mention, he'll make you laugh while he's talking about the matter. But he actually goes out and gets his things done when he was the leader. So you actually saw what a president is fully capable of doing if they really cared about the country and really want to make America great again. And now we got this guy who can barely complete a sentence in control and power. And there's just, you know, nothing's happening, man. We're just falling apart slowly but surely, even in foreign policy.
Yeah, they rigged him in there too. We know it. Everybody knows it. There's no evidence that and so it's actually just embarrassing at this point. It's so embarrassing. People, you know, like I said, people are waking up. They can see it. Whether you're talking about the gas prices, you talk about the crime, the unemployment, they paid people to stay home. I mean, this border crisis, the Afghanistan thing, and we're only 9 months in. That's the craziest thing. 9 months in.
That's it. Like I said, the slowest presidency I ever witnessed, man. Time's flying. It feels like reality is flying, still getting older, you know, time's going. But I'm watching Joe Biden, like, Joe Biden's still president? I'm like, wow. Like, it's only 9 months?
There's only so much damage control they can do. I mean, they picked the worst possible candidate to prop up. He was the oldest, slowest guy. Remember, there were like 50 people running for president. Remember all those Democrats that couldn't even fit him on stage? Marianne Williamson.
Oh, yeah.
Beto O'Rourke, Tom Steyer, freaking Mike Bloomberg. You had all these people running for president. They talk about, we love minorities. We love people of color and women. And then you chose the most corrupt old white man to be your nominee.
Racist.
Yes,
racist.
It was rigged.
I'm a racist. I don't care anybody says they use that word, but he's a racist.
And ask any Bernie supporter if they think elections can be rigged, because they rigged it against Bernie twice in the primaries. But you pick this old, decrepit man to prop up, and now you got to use all these polls Fox News, fake polls, a lot of, even on conservative side, they have to prop it up to make it seem like he's competent. Look at Joe Biden riding a bike. He can put one foot in front of the other. He's just like you. Do we know what chewing or not under pressure means yet? I'm still waiting to know what bad a calf care means. He tripped up the stairs. This is a monumental embarrassment. Yeah, jogging towards kids, sniffing kids. He sniffed a baby last week in Colorado. People do mental gymnastics to ignore it, and they focus. Well, what about that time that Trump called our military losers and suckers? I'm like, oh, can you produce the video clip of that? No, you can't. But I got video clip of Biden saying, clap for that, you stupid bastards. He's disrespected our military so many times. Everything they said Trump was, Biden actually is. They cannot produce a video of Trump saying the N-word. It doesn't exist. If it did, why isn't it flooding the internet? Here's Trump. Here's audio of Trump saying the N-word. Meanwhile, Biden's on camera saying the N-word. Biden is on camera disrespecting black people, disrespecting the military.
Fighting for segregation in the late 70s, saying he just wanted his kids going to school in the jungle.
Yeah, sniffing children. Yeah, I can't get past that. You got people.
Me either. Like you said, I can't get back to step one. Like, hold on, stop. Sniffing kids, and there's one young lady supposedly came out. I gotta look into the article myself. But that was a little girl. When the one popular one where he like moves the girl's hair and like does like all that stuff like that before he sniffs her. And she's an older adult now. Said she felt comfortable when she was a little girl being around Joe Biden at that time. You know what I mean? And every these videos you see, there's not just some weird little thing. It's like there's something to this. And then you see his son Hunter, and it's not even go to Hunter Biden. What's his situation is, man. If apple usually doesn't fall too far from the tree, man. You got a son like that, and you're sniffing little girl's hair, and you're caught on camera always doing it. I wonder what you do behind closed doors. I wonder where Hunter learned to be this crazy sicko that he is. The stuff that he's been caught on video doing, like his laptop, and the fact that he's not only got caught on video doing it, but he was just so just didn't care about the whole situation. To the fact that you're willing to leave your laptop where somebody could find it and take it to a pawn shop. Like that's how much, that you just won't get caught, that you can't get in trouble, that you just say, you know what, whatever, I'll leave my laptop and he was shocked when they found out that somebody had it and took it to the pawn shop. He probably forgot that he lost it. He's like, oh yeah, I did lose that laptop, didn't I? And so this is his son, and this is the supposed president of the United States. And this is the guy leading our country. And this is who the left thinks, like 4 years of Trump being this evil, supposed orange-haired Hitler. This was the bad guy, but yet this is the good guy. This was the answer. This was the way to get rid of that evil, bad orange man bad, was to replace him with Sleepy Joe Biden. This is the answer, you guys. This is what we've been waiting for, huh? I'm like, I tell Democrats all the time, you guys would have been way better off just getting Tulsi Gabbard in there. Because at least with Tulsi Gabbard, it would have been more believable when she would have won election, because she had a lot of people on the right that, like you tell, were big fans of her politically. And she was a veteran, and so she, in way of political thinking, the best strategy would have been with Tulsi Gabbard. But of course, we know that the leftists don't think with logic, and they think with emotion and just just react. And so we got Sleepy Joe Biden, and now 9 months of Sleepy Joe Biden, we are wondering where our country is going to be in another 4 to 8 years. So,
yeah, the Tulsi Gabbard thing is interesting because she is a socialist. She's a leftist, but she's not insufferable. You can actually listen to her talk. She doesn't present herself as fake or phony. The other reason Tulsi Gabbard probably would have been the best for the people in terms of people on the left, if they were smart, they would have chosen Tulsi Gabbard, because think about who hated her. She called out the war caucus, the establishment. Remember, she called out Hillary Clinton. Remember, Google censored her campaign ads. That means she was a threat to the establishment. She wasn't controlled. They couldn't control Tulsi Gabbard. So that would actually been a good strategy for people who voted. But in terms of the agenda, the broader agenda to destroy the country, Tulsi Gabbard would have only just been a mild socialist and compared to a Bernie Sanders or something. So yes, that would have been the right call for them to pick Tulsi Gabbard, because she could have actually presented herself. She probably could have pulled some conservative voters. Actually, it's sad that people would fall for that and still go socialist, but at least she's not that insufferable cringe. Think about some of the candidates: Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, some of the more really just the disgusting people that were really
Kamala
fake
Harris.
about them. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Joe Biden were the worst. And then Beto O'Rourke, he was another bad one. Julian Castro. This guy, Julian Castro, went on the debate stage when they all virtue signaled about a woman's right to choose abortion. He said, I also believe in reproductive justice for trans women. So he's like, we got to protect the right for men who get pregnant to abort babies. You can't make this stuff up. Who is he talking to? What percentage of Americans were like, yes, he stands for me? I'm guessing 0 people.
I mean, I don't know. I'm in New York. I probably take some areas, part of Manhattan. I can probably show you a few people. I think they probably would want to make a few people over here. By the Starbucks, they might ain't the ones you're looking for. But like I said, they're few and far between. Trust me, man. They really are. And like I said, it looks like the rest of the country, even here in New York, is starting to wake up, man. So I think even people that are even like on the left pretty far there, they got enough sense to say, okay, like I'm not going to go out of my way to fight for some of these far leftist radical policies that they're trying to push on me now, because literally they're pushing things now where it's like it sounds like they're just children's, like little kids in their imagination. You talk to a little kid and they have like an imagination and you think they're a unicorn, and you're like, oh, okay, that's funny. It's your kid got a vast imagination, and then you hear an adult like, I identify as a man saying I identify as a woman and I'm pregnant, and you're like, what the heck? Like, what utopia world are you living in for your mind to be thinking like that? Like anybody with you learn in like kindergarten, first grade area, boy and a girl, and this is common sense here, you know what I mean? But now we're living in a world where no, like that is no longer the reality, and I guess maybe it's the new norm. I guess they want this part of it, but whatever it is, man, it like makes absolutely no sense. And there's a lot of people on the left I even seeing, even here in New York, who are starting to say, okay, I'm getting sick of this now. This is too far left. This is too radical, even for me. So hopefully it continues to grow.
Yeah, man.
But Mike, man, it's been a pleasure like always, brother. I'm glad you can come on, take your time out of your day. You got a busy schedule, I know. So, RSBN doing your thing, man, doing a great job, by the way, brother. Keep it up. I'm glad that you're out there doing your thing, fighting for the truth, man. And I'll be looking out for future content. And how can people out there find you on different platforms? Where can they reach out to you and find your content, man?
Just search Mike Nificent 813 on YouTube, and it should bring up both my channels. The main one has got 64,000 subs. I am just coming back from a suspension, so I can't really post on there like I want to. But all my live streams are on my second channel, which is smaller. It's got like 3,000 subs and growing. So sub to both and hit the bell notification. Also, this weekend, Right Side Broadcasting, we're going to Georgia. There's a rally, Trump rally, Perry, Georgia. It's going to be a lot of people tuned in. So a lot of what I said today, I'll be saying right there, reaching a lot of people. So that's going to be good. But other than that, I'm on social media. Anywhere you search Mike Nificent 813, it'll pop up.
Hey, awesome, brother. Awesome, man. All right, man. Well, thank you again for coming in and doing the interview, brother. I really appreciate it. And I'll be looking out for your content. I'm definitely looking out for that, that whole event down in Georgia, man, because I know GA, they hold it down, man. So they're going to come out in droves out there.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. So let me just end on this last note. We spoke on it earlier, but this is here in New York during our last freedom rally we had, and it was some patriots going across Brooklyn Bridge saying F Joe Biden. Let's close it on that note.
Joe Biden!